I'm starting out with this oval wooden blank from IOD. It's approximately 12.5 by 15.5, and I'm going to give it one coat of burnt umber by Apple Barrel. And for the center, I'm painting it the color Victorian lace, and that's by Fusion. Now I have my DAS air-dried clay, some cornstarch, and my clear mold. I like to dust my molds with a little cornstarch, and it helps the clay release so much easier. I'm starting by casting two of these beautiful flourishes here, pressing the clay firmly into the mold and removing any excess with my thumbs. And then I'll simply flex the mold a bit and it'll pop right out. This piece is actually going to be added to my gallery wall. I love mixing different shapes and sizes, and this one will be the largest piece that I've made for it so far. So I'm really excited to see it all come together. My vision for this one is a French-inspired piece with a soft Victorian feel, something elegant, time-worn, and full of old-world charm. Using that same mold, I'm going to do some partial castings from the design here along the bottom, and I just need one of each of those. And then next, I'm moving over to my Regal Flourishes mold, and I'm going to do another two partial castings from these flourishes here along the sides. I use this mold all the time. I think it's probably one of my most used molds because it just works with just about everything and anything. And now I have my Chantel mold, and I'm going to cast the whole design, but I do end up breaking it apart. You'll see that here in a second. I love this mold too because even though it's small, there's so much you can do with it. And I use this one quite a bit too. And now I'm arranging all my castings and just trimming away anything that I don't need. I always save those little leftover pieces off to the side because you never know when they might come in handy. And then next I have my Reason Swags mold, and I'm casting these florals on each side. And then my Miniature Grace mold, I'm casting this sweet little oval frame, followed by this ornate embellishment from my Conservatory Labels mold. And now I'm going to start building a decorative inner frame along the inside border. And for that, I'm using my Regal Trimmings mold and casting 4 of these. And they're just so beautiful. And now I'm going to start gluing everything down with my Titebond Quick and Thick. And so I'm just arranging all of my designs, overlapping some of them, and curling the large ones around the sides there at the top and the bottom. And 4 hours later, the clay is nice and hard, and it's a pretty hot day today, so it dried fairly quickly. And I'm going to give the entire piece a coat of Waverly's Celery Chalk Paint. I let that dry for several hours, and I'm going to go over the whole thing with some Amber Honey Glaze by Paint Couture and really working that into all the low points, bringing forward all that beautiful ornate design and just wiping back any excess. And I also have my water mister here and use that to help move that glaze around. When I placed my order for clay, I didn't realize that I ordered is called Stone. It's like a deep dark gray. And when I filled in the gaps, you can see there where I placed these, there were gaps underneath them. And when I filled them in with that stone gray, it looked really, it was just so dark and it just didn't look right. So I got these really cool mixed media stickers from LeBlanc, and they're really cool. They're almost like dried foam clay. And so I covered those spots with those and then painted them with the color Bellwood by Fusion. And then I took that Bellwood and just started going over all my castings with it, just over the raised areas, and let that dry. And for the center, I'm putting a good coat of Mod Podge, and then I'm going to let that dry completely. Look at this beautiful lady. Oh my gosh, she is just so lovely. I printed her on some mulberry paper just with my inkjet printer. And this image you can find on the Graphics Fairy. It's in the public domain, so you shouldn't have any issues finding her. And before I printed it on the mulberry paper, I tried, I just printed it out on regular copy paper and I saved that to fill in the gaps. And so I have my parchment paper and all my little torn pieces and just heat set those using the iron-on method and then just kept filling in the gaps. And so when I was done with that, I repeated the same steps with my image. And I didn't show that. There's only so much time in a video. And so I took these pieces from those mixed media stickers and added another border around my paper. And these are really fun to work with. I almost didn't get them and I got them and I love them. They're so fun. I mixed some black chalk paint with some water and just kind of brushed over along the sides to darken it up more. And I really tried to blend in the background the best I could. This is not my forte, guys. I'm a work in progress with this. And so, I really tried to blend it out. And then I took a paper towel just to pull back some of it. And I end up loving the end result. I was actually quite pleased with myself. Just one of those moments where I kind of held my breath through it. And then once I was done, I felt like I could breathe again, and this time with a lot of satisfaction. And then I took some blues and greens and just kind of went over where the water is behind her just to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And these are by Fusion, both parsley and heirloom. Now I'm going to go along the trees just here and there with the color Manor Green by Fusion. And I think adding a little more color to everything just gave it a little more definition. I felt like the background was getting a little too muddy, and this just helped bring some of the details back out. And then I'm going to seal her in with some good old Mod Podge. You don't need anything fancy. And I'm working so hard at using things that I have in my stash. And this next product that I used, oh goodness. Okay, so I'm going to add some crackle. This is step 1 and let it dry 30 minutes. And this is step 2. And I hadn't used this in so long. It was so thick. It was like paste. And I wished I wouldn't have used it, but I went ahead and used it anyway. And so it was so thick. I had a hard time spreading it. Phew, and the next day I looked at it and there's some really dramatic cracks. I'm going over the whole thing with some more amber honey glaze, working that into all of the cracks, and then I begin wiping it back and I'm like, oh my gosh. Her face was full of cracks, her chest. Luckily, I was able to pull a lot of it back and it's okay now. It's okay, but take it from me. If your paste is too thick, don't use it. Don't use it, guys. And I'm painting over my stickers there with some bronze metallic paint. And I'm not worried about getting it all the way along the sides. I'm happy to have some of it, just some of the sticker peeking through. And then I went over all of my castings lightly with some more of that bronze metallic paint. And I think Erin describes it the best way. It looks like old gilding that's simply faded away with time. And I think that just adds, to the wear and that old world piece that has just been loved for years and years. I think there's something so peaceful about her standing beside a quiet woodland stream as though she's wandered into the pages of an old storybook. I can't help but wonder what she's looking toward just beyond the trees. Maybe she's waiting for her lover to return. Maybe she's simply taking in the stillness, or maybe she's about to begin the next chapter of her story. Maybe that's why I love these storybook pieces so much. They don't tell us exactly who they are, they just leave room for imagination. Every crack, every faded edge, every touch of gold feels like another chapter. And now she gets to begin a brand new one in someone's home. And that someone is me. I love her. And this is how she turned out. I truly hope you guys love her as much as I do. Let me know what you think. I found this on the side of the road when I went out for my walk the other day. It's filthy, so I've already got the front washed, and now I'm gonna wash the back and paint the whole thing in burnt umber. Let that dry, and then I mixed up olive and gave it a coat of that. Now that it's dry, I'm going to give it a good sand just to bring forward more of that burnt umber underneath. And then I'm going to seal it in with Paint Couture's Extreme Guard Satin and just give it one coat. We're going to go in with some transfers, and I want to make sure that I have no problem transferring them. I have this stencil and a little baking soda with some celery chalk paint and just stenciling this on. It wasn't quite thick enough. And so I mixed some of that paint in with some embossing medium by Paint Couture, and this was like the perfect texture. And so I'm positioning this in 3 of the corners, and I'm not worried about it being perfect. And so I repositioned it over the first one that I did and just spread that same mixture over. That way they're at least consistent. And that's perfect. I want this to have a lot of texture, so I have my lace stamp here and my stone gray ink. And so you can see I already have my stamp positioned. I have my brayer there, and keeping one hand on my stamp at all times. I'm going to wipe some of this back. I started to here, but then I decided I would finish stamping first, heat set it, and then wipe away the excess. Now I have my vintage script stamp with some white ink and stamping it along the bottom right hand corner here. Just make sure you keep one hand on your stamp the whole time so it doesn't shift on you. And then I'm going to grab my finger sander and then just lightly go over where I did my embossing just to soften it up a bit. And I made sure to dust away any of the debris. And then I'm going to seal it in with some Extreme Guard. When IOD came out with their 2026 summer release, I didn't buy Fern Fables. In fact, that was the only thing that I didn't buy. And now that I've seen so many tutorials, I fell in love with it. And so I added these birds to my board, and I'm just showing me transferring one on. I think most everybody knows how to use rub-on transfers, because they're just so often used now in projects. And so I love this. I can't believe how much I love it, and that I didn't buy it when it first came out. And then once I get all my transfers on, I'm going to seal it in one more time. And that is it for this. Who would have thought this sign sitting on the side of the road, all gross, would have turned out so beautiful? Let me know what you think. All right, this one's a little different. I picked up one of these wooden mason jars at Hobby Lobby and I painted it the color Meadow, and that's by Full Cart. Let it dry and then went over it with some Ivory by Waverly, and I spritzed it with some water to kind of blend it out. I didn't want full coverage here. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really trying to use stuff in my stash, and I had these stamps. And I don't like these things because if you stamp the whole thing, you're going to get that boxy look. And so I wiped most of it back, but you know what? We're not even going to see any of that. So it doesn't matter. We do get to see that lovely script. And so I pulled out a bunch of castings from Redesign's 2026 summer release. This is Bloom and Flutter and Feathered Stillness. And I just fell in love with that heron. I have been wanting to craft with it since I got it, but just haven't been able to. The little clock came from my Cameos mold, and that's by IOD. And so I'm going over all of them after I painted them with light brown sugar glaze mixed in with a little extreme guard, and then wiping some of that back. And then back to my mason jar, I put reindeer moss along the bottom and then trailed it up the side just using some hot glue. And then these grass pieces I got at the dollar store. And then I wanted my castings to have like a 3D effect. So I glued some paint star sticks to the back, gave my reindeer moss a haircut, and then glued everything down. And then you can see off to the side there, those are faux rocks that came with the Feathered Stillness mold, and I glued those right on top of the grass and then started tucking in ferns from my stash. Most of these are Dollar Tree. And that little postage stamp off to the right, that's from my ephemeral stamp by IOD. And you're going to see a lot of random DIYs from me. As I said, I really want to use what I have. And, it's just so fun to do things that, you don't do every day. My sister fell in love with this. She has this hanging on her door. So I just kept tucking ferns here and there. And then started adding little greenery, like little floral buds. Glued my clock. And then I found a bunch of, I didn't even know I had these little like paper clips. So I attached that and then just took a little piece of paper that said herbaristery. If I'm saying that right, I had to have Google help me. And then I just added some finishing touches, a few more transfers of bugs, and then added some gold to my clock and then a little bit of black over the numbers. That way they would pop. And at first I wasn't going to add any color to this, and I couldn't just leave it. I decided I would add some color. That green I'm adding around the clock is pyrite, and that is a Luxe Metallic by Paint Couture along with the bronze. And then the black is called Black Pearl, and it's again another Luxe Metallic. I painted my heron off camera with the color Parsley by Fusion, and then I also incorporated a little bit of Bunker Hill Blue, and that's by Dixie Belle. I added a hanger. I think this is so pretty. I added a few things from my journaling stash, that little bottle along the bottom, and that butterfly. Let me know what you think. I just wanted to share this last one with you guys real quick. I got this napkin in this blank journal in my Rehatch Designs box. I'm going to remove the ply from the napkin, and I'm going to decoupage this right onto my book. This is just a fun, easy DIY, something different. And again, just use whatever you have on hand. You could also do this with a cheap notebook from like the Dollar Tree or whatever, and they usually have napkins there. I know Home Goods has a good selection of napkins. TJ Maxx does, and they're rather inexpensive. So, you could do that, or you could take some tissue paper and stamp onto that and decoupage that onto your notebook. I'm using Pendart's decoupage varnishing glue, but of course you could use Mod Podge. And I'm going to fold the remaining on the inside, and then the excess napkin I'm going to fill in the blank areas. Then I went over everything once it was nice and dry with my mini heat press, just making sure all those wrinkles are gone and it's just nice and flat. That napkin just kind of melts right into that Mod Podge. And now I'm just going to take out a bunch of stamps. I have the Consour's Library, if I'm saying that right, my ephemeral stamp, and I think I pull out my Lee Courier stamp, and all I do is just start stamping. I have my black ink from IOD, making sure that I wipe any excess ink off of my stamps because I want to make sure that I take excellent care of these so they last me years and years. And this is just so fun. You don't necessarily have to use IOD stamps. You can just use any stamps. You can use transfers, stickers. If you're artsy, you can draw in your designs or maybe go online and print off things that you love. Like in my first project, I found that image on the Graphics Fairy. There's so many in there that you could just start putting together like a mixed media, like we did back in the day. We used to cut out images from magazines, and that's how we did our mixed media back then. Just look around you. Ephemera is everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's labels. Cereal boxes, or just any box in general, there's usually something on there that you could take away. Letters, books from the Dollar Tree, there's a lot of ephemera in there. It's just look around you. And then that image was from my ephemeral stamp, and then I decided to glue 2 pages together because you could see through, and I didn't want to, for it to be transparent, so I glued those together. I noticed a lot of my packages are coming with ephemera. A lot of people are sending really cool stuff in the mail, so if you shop small businesses, you'll definitely see what I'm talking about. That was my Frames 3 mold, and I painted it in the color Bellwood. I added Tight Bond Quick and Thick to the back of my casting, and then glued that right on the front. And then I wanted to add a transfer. This is from the Enchanted Grove by Redesign. Added this sweet little flower to the front, and just lay it down, start rubbing, and then pull back on that vellum sheet. Seal in my transfer with some Extreme Guard. And that's it for our journal. I think it came out so pretty. I just love that one too. And here's a quick recap of everything that we made today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's projects. Be on the lookout. Sunday is our What Would You Make challenge. I have all budget-friendly DIYs for you, and I will be guest hosting. And on Monday is my collaboration that I host with my friend Yetta from Craft Along with Jay, and it's our monthly Budget to Beautiful. And again, beautiful things on a budget. As always, if you like this video, hit that like button, comment, subscribe. I'd love to have you here, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss another video from me. Thank you for spending time with me today. Until the next one, bye.